Hi, my name is Melissa Giles, and in these videos that you will be seeing is going to be the entire book of Proverbs and how it has helped me in my way of thinking, and how God can work in your way of thinking if you just allow Him to do so. So Proverbs to me is the most important book to become wise in the Bible, because it talks about our thinking to be worldly and our thinking to be spiritual. And it really takes a look at who you are as a person. It really takes a look at your intentions of your heart. It will make you become wise. It will make you see things within yourself that you don't necessarily want to see, and it will also make you see things in yourself that you really want to change to be a better person, or be the person that you're made to be, or who you want to become. I think that eventually in time, as you get older and older in life, you obviously want to become a better person, and the things that we were taught aren't necessarily, how do I say, they're not really who you are. It's just the way that we're taught through our families, you know, how we're brought up, how we're brought up, you know. Even the wisest people could live in a bad way, you know, because they're not whole in their heart. I don't want to even go into that, but however, so I'm just going to go through Proverbs, and we're just gonna let God do the work. He is definitely in control, and I like it when He's in control. So, and you guys should too, you know, like He is like the most amazing God in the world. You know, He's very high and mighty, and even when He points out things that we don't necessarily like, they're really for the good, and they're really for, you know, for Him, you know, to glorify Him, and to also change your way to thinking as being of Him, because it is really the best thinking in the world today, and you can go and spread it by your actions, for one, and for your own self. You know, it's really good to feel good about yourself, and though you may not feel that when you become more spiritual, because believe me, the more spiritual you become, the more you feel out of place, and I experience that almost daily. So with all of that being said, I'm just going to go on with Proverbs chapter 1. If he takes us into another part of the book, into another part of the Bible, then we'll go to another part of the Bible. Other than that, we're just going to go through each chapter. Each chapter will be its own video, for I think that each chapter has its own meaning, and going back and watching the videos even later is a daily thing. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's a different, how do I say, a different meaning behind each chapter, each verse. I think it's highly important in learning any part of the Bible. Yeah, it's great to go from book to book. However, when you read the whole book, it's like reading like a regular book. You know, it's like if there weren't 66, if there was 66 separate books and not just one in this whole book, right? Then it would be like you wouldn't start from one verse to the next verse. You'd read the whole book, and I think it's important to do that in the books of the Bible. So with that being said, let's start. Okay, so just a little disclaimer here. I don't know anything about the Bible other than what I've been taught. I'm not certified. I have no education whatsoever through school or anything like that. I only know what God's taught me. And so I just want to throw that out there. I don't know a whole lot about the kings and the queens in the Bible. I don't know exactly. I know some. I only know, this is the bottom line, I only know what I've been taught. So chapter 1 of Proverbs is chapter 1. So the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear it, increase in learning, and one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. And for each riddle, because it's important to know the riddles. They're not, if you really think about it, they're not really riddles. They're, how do I say, they're character defects that we don't want to look at. They're parts of us that we don't really want to see. So if you read a proverb that's pertaining to your life in that day, you're like, oh, well, I don't understand that proverb, because it's like definitely applying to you. So to understand the riddles is really applying it to your life and really digging deep down inside. To say, oh man, I really am acting that way, or oh man, I have that thought. Geez, you know, if you pay close attention to each verse, each verse in each verse, it will say, let me get an example really quick. So it will say something in the nature of, well, the first three, hang on one second. So it will say, like, treasures gained by wickedness do not profit, but righteousness delivers from death. So like the wickedness is death, right? So it's like kind of like the opposite. It's what we think, it's the worldly thinking, and then it teaches you about the spiritual thinking. So it's kind of like, for me, it's kind of like, it's the opposite of the way that you think and then the way that you should think. So for everyone, it's saying, okay, this is your character defect, this is your spirit, your way of thinking to be worldly, and then it replaces it with the spiritual way of thinking. So the riddles are true, you know. They can get really, really deep, right? Okay, so chapter 1, this is verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. See, there was one right there, right? I should have just stayed in with chapter 1. Okay. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and fools despise wisdom and instruction. And fools despise, so if the fear of the Lord is like being thankful, yes, but the fear of the Lord is like, what is he going to do to me next if I make this other action? Fools despise wisdom and instruction, and if you don't follow the 10 Commandments, I'm sorry to say you're a fool. But that's for me, okay? Like, I'm not saying that you are, I'm saying that, you know, that's how it is for me. But really that's what it's saying. So hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are the graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck. And in chapter 1, it really talks about like the first 6 commandments. Out of the 10 commandments, that's how you know that you're being wiser, because each proverb or each chapter in Proverbs definitely can reflect on each commandment, each of the 10 commandments. And that's why it's like, for me, that's why it was like crucial for me to know the 10 commandments, which I didn't learn for years afterwards. But however, you know, becoming wise is really obeying what the 10 commandments say, and we're not made to be perfect, but I don't like saying the word but, however, it, like really thinks about like how we treat our parents, or how humble we are, or what it is inside of the 10 commandments that holds in this first chapter. And it's really breaking it down to the 10 commandments and the worldly thinking and the thinking of spiritual thinking. So a lot of this, the first one is really identifying the commandments. The first 5 commandments are the last 4. Okay, so, you know, obeying your mother and your father. And for those of us who don't have moms and dads, and I'm like, I have them, but they don't like me. For that, you know, God has always been my mom and dad. And even in the midst of, you know, even when I did get along with my parents, well, that's a whole other story, but God's been my mom and my dad, period. And he'll be your mom and your dad too if you let him. He'll give you more love than your parents could ever give you love if you're open to that spiritual faith, right? Believing in things that are not seen. And God is definitely real in that realm, in every realm. But if you really struggle with not knowing your parents, or fighting with your parents. You know, I mean, he is the God of all gods, and it's, I don't even know how to explain it other than he'll be both your mom and your dad. Okay, so my son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let us lie and wait for blood. Let us ambush the innocent without reason. Like Sheol, let us swallow them alive and whole, like those who go down into the pit. We shall find all precious goods. We shall fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot among us. We will all have one purse. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Hold back your foot in their paths, and their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. For in vain, so that's like the last 4 commandments where, you know, we have friends in our life, and, you know, like I say, the more spiritual you get, then the less you even want to hang out with people like that. You know, however, with that being said, we can't judge either, because there at one point in time, we were that, or should I not use we? I want to use I statements. Okay, I want to use I statements because, you know, it wipes out judgment when, you know, just because you're doing better than your friends were or other people in your life doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you can't be friends with them. You know, like with myself, I talk to everybody. However, I just limit, as I'm thinking about this, like I don't have a whole lot of people in my life, so there's not really a whole lot to limit, but at one point in time or another, you know, I didn't live that great of a life, and so I was one of them too, you know. So with that being said, like I can't just like throw them out and say, oh well, I'm now better than you because I have spiritual thinking, or I have a different way of thinking, and so therefore I'm not going to talk to you. Or I think, you know, like you guys, I think understand what I'm saying. So therefore I don't say those things, and nor should you, because then you're passing judgment on them as somebody who you used to be. So if anything, you know, then it's prayer that helps you, like, it's prayer, you know, like God, you know, like please forgive them, for they do not know what they do, as you forgave me, for I did not know what I was doing before I came to see you, or before I found you and you took over my thinking. You know, it's prayer of you know, lead and guide and direct their thoughts as you led and guide and directed my thoughts to be of you and not of this world. It's prayer of, you know, please forgive them of all of their sins as you gave them for all of my sins. It's prayer of, what else? It's prayer of, you know, please protect them as you protected me during these times that I was doing those evil things, or during those times that I wasn't making the best decisions. You know, keep them safe like you kept me safe. And that way you're not judging anybody, you're praying for them in hopes that either they will see how God is working in their life, just like you eventually, or just like I eventually saw how God was working in my life, and was really wanting that change and really wanting to go to that, and, you know, and so, you know, and it's not passing judgment on them. It's just praying for them, you know, like you used to be that person, so how can you judge, right? Okay, good. So, do I want to hang out with those kinds of people anymore? No, but however, I do pray for them, and I don't wish ill on anybody, and I just hope and I pray that, you know, for everybody, that they see how powerful God really is, and they see that praying for somebody else who you used to be, or the things that you used to do, or whatever the case may be for you, you know, it makes you feel good, because you know how strong God is. And so with that being said, then obviously he's going to eventually work in their lives, just like he worked in your lives. So it's separating yourself in a good way, right? That's how I look at it. It's separating yourself in a good way. Please, Father, please forgive them of all of their sins as you forgave me. That's one of the big ones. Please, God, forgive them for they do not know what they do. You know, that's a really big one for me as well. Okay, so where was I? For in vain is a net spread in the sight of any bird, but these men lie in wait for their own blood. They set an ambush for their own lives. It's like self-destruction, you know, that's just talking about self-destruction. You know, whether we come up in a family full of addicts or alcoholics, like I did. I wasn't brought up in it, but I have them in my family, and or, you know, rather we come from a family of doctors, you know, I mean, doesn't matter where you come from. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors or your possessors. Wisdom cries aloud in the streets and the market. She raises her voice. At the head of a noisy street, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gates, she speaks. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing, and fools hate knowledge? And that's talking about gossiping and being average. Like, we're made to be more than what we are. It's purpose. We all have purpose for our lives. And being simple is being average. And we're not average people. You know, we're not meant to be average. We are these magnificent beings that how do I say, that we crave more. I mean, eventually in time, as we get older and older and older, we want more for our lives, right? And so, you know, the question becomes, you know, like, I don't want to do this anymore, so what am I going to do to make it better? And like, I know I have a better life out there for me. And nowadays they speak so much about dreaming and, you know, loving one another and all of those really positive things. All of that is like really out there with the units. Like, a lot of it is about the universe and things like that. All of that stuff is really, really pushed. You know, you see all of the shirts that have inspiring things for kids on their sleeves, and, you know, what makes the world smile, like those kinds of things. And so it's like, it's everywhere, and you don't necessarily even have to know the Bible, but it's about putting that energy out. But, you know, that's bringing and making you think of something better, you know, that there is something better out there for you, and there is something better out for you. And so in the beginning of Proverbs, when it talks about the 10 Commandments, and it's laying it all out, you know, like, how long do you want to be simple? How long do you want to be average, when I'm calling you to understanding, knowledge, and wisdom, so that you may be the person that I made you to be, so that you may be the person that you are craving to be, which is that better person on the inside, right? So that's what that's talking about. If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. Truth. Because I have called you and you refuse to listen, have stretched out my hand and no one has heeded. You guys, when we go through a lot in our life, like, I had this thought yesterday, and then years ago too, but more so yesterday, that, you know, I don't really talk about my life, of what I've overcome. And I am a survivor. I'm a survivor of a lot of things, right? That's where spiritual warfare came from. And you know, it's us that go through a lot of things. I'm a survivor of a lot of things, you know. I'm a survivor starting at a really, really early age of molestation. I'm a survivor of incest. I'm a survivor of abuse. I'm a survivor of physical abuse, mental abuse. I'm a survivor of alcohol and drug abuse. I'm a survivor of losing a child. I'm a survivor of a lot of things. And, you know, and if it wasn't for God, then I wouldn't be a survivor of anything. But however, I know that it was the purpose of my life, and I don't go back and say, oh, well, it's God's fault, it's God's fault, it's God's fault, because it's not. I mean, he made my life, and he made your life, if you're a survivor of anything, to be that person that will go and say, this is how it helped me in my life. And this is how he helped me overcome this or overcome that. And when you do overcome those things, and we are people to help people. And so he called you, he called me, he called me to do his work, whether it be through preaching the Bible, which I don't know. I don't know about that, but however, I don't know. I just do what he tells me to do, okay? In that respect. And that's what I'm doing now, is just teaching Proverbs, because it changed my way of thinking, and that's what I want to teach, is how to change your way of thinking, and how he changed my way of thinking to be more wise in the sight of him and of those who are wise of man, okay? Not for validation or anything of that sort, but just to show people that if you can become a wise within sight, that God has called you for a reason, and he will show you what your purpose is, and you must change your way of thinking in order for that to happen. So for those of us that have gone through a whole lot in our life, and we overcome a whole lot of things, then he's called us, because he was the one who ultimately got us out of whatever it was that we were going through. But when he calls us and we refuse to listen, then he doesn't hear your prayers. He won't listen to you. He won't leave you, but he'll let you struggle until you get it. So because you have ignored, and the more you read Proverbs and the more you understand them, the more you gain knowledge in God. It's like, I'll tell you a story yesterday that happened. Hey! Let me go close the door. Ouch. Hey! Stop it. Come here. It's recording. Oh well. No. Sorry. 22 minutes, dang it. Well, I won't tell you the story now, but something that happened yesterday to me, and it was a good thing, but it was a bad thing, because he punished me ultimately. But at the same time, it's okay. So, let me just finish this one, because it's at 22 minutes. Okay, good. So if you turn away from what he's trying to teach you, then he'll put this thorn in your side to make you get it. Eventually you'll get it, believe me. So because you ignored, okay, so I will laugh at your calamity, and I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm, and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. He's not going to leave you nor forsake you, but he will, let you figure it out. How bad how sick and tired are you going to be sick and tired before you actually go to him, when he's already there in your face anyway. Kino, please stop. Then they will call upon you, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, would have known of my counsel and despise of all my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their ways, and have their fill of their own devices. For the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure, and will be at ease without dread of disaster. And I'm going to just end this with this. That's chapter 1 of Proverbs, and I'm going to end this with this. The foundation of the world is faith. And if you can master faith, you can master life. And, faith is, yes, believing in things that are not seen, but faith is also trusting in knowing that God can change your way of thinking. It's a daily thing, and to become wise in the sight of him, which really should be it should only be, how do I say, God? How do I say, during transformation, it should only be of that, because he's transforming you to be like him. And so that's where all of the worldly stuff will be first and foremost, but it will come to you, like getting rid of comparing people, comparing yourself to another person. That's huge. You can't compare your life to another person's life unless you're going, no. Let me say that again. You can't compare your life to another person's life, because his plan for their life is not your plan, right? So comparing is huge in this world, because we want to be like somebody else, or we want to compare, well, why did this happen to me and not to that person? And it can go on and go on and go on. However, comparing is ill, and it can be ill to your heart. I'm telling you, the devil's real. I mean, not the dog, but like he totally is just jacked up. But anyways, faith is the foundation of this world, and when you can put faith into yourself, or not into yourself, but into God, to know that he will change you, because he will, and to put faith in believing that that spirit we can live within you. The spirit can live within you to change your way of thinking. That's where the faith lies to begin with. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to end this because the dog is going crazy. And for 2, that's chapter 1 of Proverbs. So yeah, thank you. Bye.